Good morning, good afternoon, good evening for everyone joining the call. I'm Alexis Lozada. I'm the practice lead for supply chain planning at Westernacher for the Americas. And with me, I have my esteemed colleague, Vittorio Cotroni. Go ahead, Vittorio, present yourself.
Yeah, Vittorio Cotroni, solution architect on the IBP and working also as innovation lead for the planning practice based in Zurich, in Switzerland.
So Vittorio and I are going to talk about how you can continue doing your supply chain digital transformation with Westernacher. And today we are talking about why move from SAP APO to IBP. And this is the agenda. We'll introduce who we at Westernacher are, talk about the core topic, why move from SAP APO to IBP. We'll talk about implementation processes and scenarios. We'll talk about success stories that were delivered by Westernacher. So this is a space where Westernacher has actual implementation experience. And we would like to give about 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A for you to talk to us about any questions that you might be pressing for. And then we'll add an appendix here so you can learn more about our supply chain planning practice. So a little bit of an overview about Westernacher. We have about 1,000 experts globally. So we're a global company with $125 million in revenue as of fiscal year 2023. We're a 100% employee-owned company with more than 53 years of innovation. We have been a SAP partner for 30 years. Right now we have the gold partner status and we're carbon neutral. We have achieved an SAP competency level of expert in enterprise resource planning and supply chain management as well. We have pioneered in this space for quite some time. So one way to look at us is we are supply chain experts, ERP experts with a global footprint. And so that's something that we're very proud of. How we innovate is because we have the capability of integrating supply chain processes and technologies end-to-end management space, from planning to execution, all the way to the ERP systems processing, order to cash, order to deliver processes as well. So you can see that we have expertise along the end-to-end supply chain management spectrum from both a process perspective as well as a technology. You'll see down here all the SAP technologies where we are experts, as well as areas of innovation by ourselves. As I said, where we are diverse yet consistent. We deliver on a global scale. We have a growing global team where we are located in 28 cities across the globe. We have completed implementations in 21 countries, but we have a single vision. We are headquartered in Heidelberg, Germany, but you can see all the cities where we have presence. Because we are global, we also offer support systems that also follow the sun 24 hours. So we offer application management services to safeguard your operations after a go live. And as you can see, we have on-site locations in Europe, the Americas, Asia, and the Middle East. So enough about us. This is just to give you a little brief introduction of who we are. But let's jump into the topic at hand. So why move from SAP APO to IBP? So we know that there are a lot of customers globally that are still leveraging SAP IPO to complete their supply chain planning processes and connect them to their execution systems as well and execution processes. I think there are a couple of things that are important. One is there is this graphical example called the trap value gap, right? There is locked value in available technologies that are not implemented, right? So as the supply chain has become more dynamic, I don't think it's become more dynamic, but more disruptive in the sense that it's subject to a lot of internal and external disruptions. The latest supply chain technologies offer you the opportunity to generate more value, build resiliency, build sustainability, but also build the flexibility needed to really respond to all these internal and external disruptions and changes, right? It could be changes within your industry, it could be structural changes within economies where your business participates, and so forth. So there is log value in releasing and adopting the new and latest supply chain technologies. Over time, as your business evolves, technology innovation also has evolved to a point to continue supporting your supply chain processes and also be able to deliver value to your business. I think this is how I would summarize this slide. So that is one reason. There is value in IBP that can help better support your business today and tomorrow. The other one is because we're coming part of this story of log value in available technologies, in the latest technologies, is because of SAP's announcement of the end of maintenance of APO. So as you can see, that since the launch of APO in 1988, by the end by 2027, so that's about 3 years from now, there will be the end of maintenance. But that also means that there hasn't been a lot of innovation introduced in APO itself. So it's not just the end of maintenance, but it's also, for quite some time perhaps, that there hasn't been a lot of innovation in APO that can really help manage your supply chain to a higher level or meet the challenges of today and tomorrow, right? So that's another reason why you should consider this move. But before you consider any of those moves, we need to understand where you are today and where you want to go, right? So what are the key questions that are important to consider for making this move happen? One is, of course, let's start with process. You want to increase the agility and effectiveness of your processes, supply chain processes today. Do you want to eliminate silos inside and outside your supply chain management that would really help you capture that value that is needed to build resiliency within your supply chain? Do you want to increase the planning cycles? And by increasing the planning cycles, it allows you to build that resiliency and also be able to adapt to continuous changes to your supply chain, right? So you make an adaptable supply chain by shortening planning cycles as well. Is it a people question? Do you want to adopt new technologies so you can have planners more engaged in the planning process? So increasing the planner adoption of new technology can really lead you to capture that log value that you haven't in the past. That has a correlation with increasing planner productivity. Perhaps the latest technology, help you with automation of so many processes and algorithm runs, calculations, and you can build confidence in those automated results so you can focus on the exceptions, where the planner really needs to intervene. It's about upgrading your teams, right? Upgrading your planner skills and a knowledge of supply chain planning. But also from a people perspective, and this has to do with eliminating silos, is increasing planning collaboration, bringing stakeholders within above and beyond supply chain, stakeholders like other functions within your business. For instance, connecting, creating more collaboration with finance, marketing, and sales in an S&OP process, or being able to connect, share information to key suppliers, be able to create collaboration with your procurement teams as well, that typically sometimes are not connected as well. So is there a people play in where you are today and where you want to go? And then the third pillar here is about the technology. Of course, we talk about the end of maintenance in 2027. Perhaps today you have too many customizations that are not allowing you to create more collaboration or be able to really understand what's happening in your planning decisions. Perhaps there are long processing times for planning runs, right? Long lead times for innovation delivery. It takes too long to make an APO upgrade or so forth. Or perhaps you're part of a digital transformation, and this is part of your digital transformation is moving to a digital cloud-based technology like SAP IBP. So before we engage into any forward-looking conversation, it's really important to understand where you are today across these three pillars, and what is that roadmap, where you want to go, what's that goal line or goals that you want to achieve. So quickly, for those that don't know about SAP Integrated Business Planning, like I said, that this is the latest digital supply chain planning technology. It's cloud-based, it's modular. It offers, many functions that covers, we start with, this technology is very modular, and it covers the strategical, the tactical, and how it connects to your execution systems, right? So it starts with the sales and operations planning module, where you can create that business plan, drive that revenue growth, increase your market shares, be able to have that cross-functional collaboration with finance, sales, and marketing, and then start, doing the supply chain planning orchestration with your supply resources, right? And try to really understand what are the future supply requirements to meet those future plans, those future products, distribution channels, revenue goals, profitability goals, as well as marketing goals. Then part of leveraging this sales and operations planning, it's all about understanding your demand. So tactically, SAP offers a demand module that it's very well enriched with forecasting methodologies and algorithms, multiple of them. You can even connect to external algorithms if you need to, in case some of the almost 20 some don't meet those. But the idea here is to support your demand planning process to achieve higher quality of your forecasting, which with the corresponding benefits of it. There is a lot of automations, there is a lot of machine learning and AI techniques that can really leverage, being able to process and consume and understand the implications of considering different models, flexibility to apply different forecasting methodologies to a specific product segments or categories or channels. There is a demand sensing feature or support for that understanding that short-term planning horizon that can really benefit, respond better. So that's on the demand side. There is, as you build a consensus demand that is unconstrained, right? It also helps you build an unconstrained inventory plan. And what's important about this unconstrained inventory plan is that it's based on an end-to-end network. So this is what is called the multi-echelon inventory optimization. It creates an end-to-end network inventory plan. So you have an understanding of your unconstrained inventory requirements for your finished materials, your work in process, your raw material planning. It really gives you that complete visibility to where are the uncertainties impacting your supply chain network, and where you need to buffer, where you need to balance your inventory. So what is the end goal? Well, it helps you maximize the efficiency of your inventory and how you manage that investment that is so important to your financials. Last but not least, this is, again, we go from the strategic to the tactical and to the operational. So in response and supply, you start building those supply planning requirements at a tactical level, but also at the order-based level. And you start constraining those unconstrained requirements, such as demand and inventory, to be able to understand your future supply requirements, where you need to determine what resources it may need, increasing, whether it's increasing resources, adding more resources in order to meet those demand requirements of your supply chain. It also gives you the ability to really get down to where you want to deploy product more effectively, minimize the costs related to those deployment plans. It has the ability to create low building capabilities for your transportation, but at the end, you can create that connectivity to your execution systems like production planning and your MRP runs in S/4HANA. And in the latest innovation, you can do real-time integration between your production scheduling, your transportation scheduling with your planning, and create that continuous feedback that is important in order to create a more robust plans, but also be synchronized to what is actually happening in the execution. I could speak more. One layer that is around all of this is about end-to-end visibility of your supply chain plans, be able to focus on what are the alerts. So this is the supply chain control tower function within SAP IBP that you can create alerts, automate alerts. So planners are focused on exceptions when they start their days, do root cause analysis, find resolutions for it. There are a lot of good analyticals frameworks that you can have. There are multiple UIs as well. So this is a brief overview. I mean, I could speak hours about SAP IBP, but this is a quick overview of what that technology is. Again, last but not least, one of the greatest benefits of SAP IBP is that you can connect it to SAP Business Networks. Whatever supply chain planning requirements are needed for your vendor community, you can connect those future requirements, especially to your key vendors. That way you're building more resiliency and you have a better connectivity in terms of what you can expect from those key vendors, be able to help them provide a better demand signal of your requirements, more aligned to your actual supply chain requirements. So why do this? At the end, there's got to be a business benefit. This is a chart that is provided to you for reference. This was constructed as a combination of SAP Value Engineering and other external resources that are focused on the industry. But a typical company with a very mature integrated business planning processes can achieve top line revenue of 1.2%, 1 to 2% increases, 20 to 30% in-stock percentage improvements, 5 to 10% increases in service levels, improve planner productivity, have significant reduction in lead time, so more responsive lead times, reduce inventory, so really unlock that value in cash to your business rather than maintaining inventory that never moves and creates all other types of logistical costs. From an asset utilization, of course, reducing inventory levels can help you with that. Inventory turns can increase. And of course, last but not least, being able to reduce your cash conversion cycle so your business can get closer and closer to that cash that is needed in the business. So these are for references in terms of when you achieve maturity in your integrated business planning process, this is the outcomes that you can see, and much more, of course. So let's talk about the advantages that SAP IBP offers that are incremental to SAP APO. So let's talk about functionality first. So functionally, SAP IBP has been embedding for quite some time and continues to embed in their algorithms artificial intelligence and machine learning techniques that help you improve the quality of your master data, the quality of your forecasting, automation, segmentation analysis, inventory planning. And so functionally, there is a lot of embedded functionality in terms of the latest AI and machine learning techniques. Also, it offers, as part of your S&OP process, it offers the opportunity to introduce risk management, to be able to assess the risks of your plans as you are going through your S&OP process, as well as the impact to the sustainability, right? The impact to the environment of your supply chain. So as you are looking at your strategic future plans, you can embed how risky, what are the risks, and be able to measure those potential risks, how to mitigate them, but also the impact to the environment as well. You know, how you can make your supply chain more sustainable. Demand sensing, as I mentioned, is something functionally that exists in IBP. It's been mature for quite some time. This is an area where there are some really advanced algorithms to improve the quality of your forecasting. There are machine learning techniques embedded in demand sensing. But if you have a supply chain that requires, a lot of quick responses, especially in your deployment, demand sensing can help you increase the quality of your forecast and increase the quality of your deployment. Multi-echelon inventory optimization. This is something that is very unique in SAP IBP compared to APO and perhaps other products in the industry, because it has the ability to create an end-to-end inventory plan that will increase service levels or maintain service level while you're systematically removing inventory across the end-to-end supply chain network, from materials that are distributed to your customers all the way to upstream to the warehouses receiving raw materials. And you're able to really buffer and allocate inventory where it's really needed. And that helps you unlock a lot of cash that perhaps you're holding today in inventory. At the end, it helps you reduce your cash conversion cycle. One of the greatest things that SAP IBP offers is the capability of running what-if scenarios in very, very fast. With very large data sets. This has been proven in SAP IBP. There are companies with product location combinations in the millions, and they're able to run scenarios within the hour, within the 2 hours. That means that with the filtering capability that's in SAP IBP, a planner can select a very narrow case, be able to obtain the results of that scenario, be able to save them, be able to then replan if that planner chooses to, based on the scenario's results. So the ability to create scenarios based on multiple key figures related to demand, inventory, sourcing at a faster speed helps you build that robustness and resiliency that is needed in your planning process. I spoke about the synchronization between order-based planning and production and distribution scheduling. Again, it's about being in sync with your execution and be able to replan if needed, be able to respond if that's needed as well, as we know that when time of execution comes, many things will change, right? And so the capacity to synchronize that in real time with your planning, with your order-based planning is very critical. Another layer that is typically not mentioned, but it's actually a really, really good feature function that exists in IBP that is not in APO, is planning for maintenance, repairs, and operations. So this is a model, a unique model, that if you want to improve your MRO process, or if you have an MRO process where you need to create visibility and long-term planning, and so build more of a bottom-up process of planning for MRO, that capability exists, is very powerful as well, but it helps you connect, be able to determine not only your material, but your labor requirements in the future to support an MRO process, and the ability to connect this with your vendor community, who will be very pleased to understand what those long-term material requirements and labor requirements are. User experience. SAP IBP offers some really Fiori designs, approaches for application. It's very easy to understand. It really builds that basic intuitiveness of navigation. From a planning perspective, there are multiple user interfaces options. There are several web UI planners, web UIs like Planner Workspace, driver-based planning, that you don't have to go into Excel. But if you need to work into Excel and continue to work into Excel, that is also available. Typically, if a lot of planning is done in Excel today, IBP can continue supporting that. In that way, user adoption, planner adoption, which is key, as we mentioned, continues there. But the fact is that there are so many improved UIs, easier to use, easy to get results. Is much better offering that what exists today in APO. Exception-based planning by alert management. Again, so you can leverage any of these UIs that I mentioned to just go and focus on those alerts. It helps you automate and those processes as well, and provide visibility to different stakeholders that will also look into those alerts. So if you think about it, this is very beneficial, not just for the planner, but for all the stakeholders related to those alerts as well. Intelligent visibility and analytics storage is the way to look at the end-to-end network and see what's happening, where those alerts are and how they're being handled, but be able to understand the outcome of your business, of your planning process. This relates a lot to automation of process management. So any supply chain planning process can be automated within the tool. And last but not least is collaboration with your peers. There are several options where you can create collaboration in your planning teams, but also internal and perhaps external stakeholders as well. In terms of integration, IBP can integrate to any ERP system, whether it's SAP or non-SAP. It has the ability to integrate with S/4HANA PPDS module, the transportation management module, SAP Ariba, which is the supplier collaboration network solution as well. So as you can see, it can connect to different types of ERPs, SAP, non-SAP, different type of important supply chain management modules in S/4HANA. And last but not least is it also can integrate with SAP Analytics Cloud to complete that value planning story as well. So it can integrate to several extensions of solutions that are key to both supply chain management, but also business management. Innovation and technology, it offers because this is powered by SAP HANA. It has a lot of scalability and with their elastic cloud technology, it allows you to create, it's very, very scalable. What that means is able to handle a lot of combinations of a lot of complexity and a lot of data. From an innovation technology, these are delivered quarterly. So anything that you might be missing, you might be obtaining it in the next quarter. It includes 6 to 7 hot fixes as in every release. So if there anything that is broken will be fixed very quickly within 2-3 weeks of every quarterly release. You also have the ability to influence those innovations into the future, as you can collaborate with SAP via customer portal entries. So your voice is heard and eventually will be included into the product roadmap. Again, quick review and overview to help you get to the point where you can unlock value with the latest technologies. We talked about if you can achieve maturity in your supply chain planning with SAP IBP, transitioning from APO, there is a value case there in terms of improving your overall business performance and your overall supply chain performance. So with that, I want to transition to my colleague, Vittorio.
Yes, perfect. Thanks, Alexis. Okay, the first question that could come to your mind is actually from where do we start, right? And here it comes again to what Alexis was mentioning before about where you are and where you want to go, and how we want to fill that value trap, because you should not think about the implementation of SAP IBP just replacing APO and try to have a one-to-one replacement of what you have today. But in order to fill that value trap that Alexis was mentioning, you should use it as an opportunity to review and rethink about your planning process to see how you can make it in line with your strategies, in keeping into consideration also what are the latest technology and how you can improve your planning process using those technologies. What you see in this slide is an example of how, based on your pain points that you could have potentially today in your planning process, which modules can actually support you to fulfill or to cover those or address those pain points. In the same way, you could create a similar table just thinking about the KPIs that you want to improve, and based on the KPIs that you want to improve, you will also be able to determine which modules of IBP can actually help you to improve those KPIs. So one of the first things, as Alexis was mentioning before, is assess where you are, try to identify how we can improve those your current planning processes based on the new technology that SAP makes available, and then that could drive you to identify and define a roadmap for the future implementation of SAP IBP solution. Now, coming to APO versus IBP. APO was born as in the 90s with the concept of APS systems, so planning systems using advanced algorithms, and that's why it had inside also algorithms like PPDS and GATP. But with time, SAP has also realized that especially for those tools that required a more strict or stronger integration with the execution system, like for example the ATP check or the scheduling process, those activities, or sorry, those modules that were before on the APO side have been moved to the S4 side, while within the IBP space and the IBP system, you will see more the modules that cover that strategic, tactical, and operational planning that Alexis was mentioning in the mid and long-term planning. On top of that, you also again should not think as a one-to-one mapping between APO and IBP, because as Alexis was mentioning, there are tools that were not available on APO before. In particular, you have inventory optimization that Alexis was mentioning before, that is coming from the acquisition of SmartOps from SAP, that actually is something that was not available on APO before. So, that specific module, you have additional functionalities. Alexis has already mentioned some of them, or most of them, like the demand sensing, like the machine learning or the AI functionalities. So how can you define a roadmap, or how can you start thinking of moving towards from your current APO system towards an IBP system in the future? Well, we have seen different scenarios in our experience around the different years, and here you see depicted the main ones that we have experienced so far. So you have the classical case is to start a bit in the same way as we have seen in the past. The APO implementations were starting. Usually we're implementing APO-DP and then moving to supply network planning, and then you were implementing deployment and TLB and PPDS and so on. So moving in those horizons from the long term towards the short term. You could apply a similar strategy also from an IBP perspective, and that is basically what we have tried to depict here with the scenario one that we have called improve. The second scenario that we have seen also from our early adopters of SAP IBP was also to enhance the current APO solution with functionalities that were not available on the APO side. So for one example was, for example, to have IBP for inventory receiving the data from APO, receiving therefore the data from APO DP, using that information, calculating the forecast error for determining the recommended safety stock on the IBP side, and then delivering the information of that recommended safety stock back to the APO instance, so that that time series recommended safety stock could be managed on the supply network planning module on the APO side. Like you see it on the IBP for inventory, you could think about implementing it, for example, for demand planning or for some other specific solutions that you see that IBP has on top of what you have on the APO side, and could be a way also for still keeping your current process, but just trying to improve it and also start having your planners getting used to the new tool and the new functionalities. Third scenario that we have seen is basically a consolidation scenario. So often what you have is that, especially for companies that have grown quite quickly due to merge and acquisitions, is that you have a pretty scattered system landscape, and maybe some companies or some business units are using APO, some other ones maybe are using JD Edwards, maybe some other ones are not using any tool, and then it becomes quite complex to run an S&OP process where you could have a visibility of your supply chain network end to end. So that is basically the scenario or the case in which you are using IBP as a consolidation layer, where you integrate all your data from the different planning tools or from the ERP systems, and having IBP as a planning tool that can allow you to run this S&OP process, perform globally, and support that part of the process. What we want to talk about here then is about some use cases that we have seen in the past of some of our early adopters that have been moving from APO to IBP. One of these cases is Ineos Styrolution that is working in the chemical industry. In particular, they are producing plastics that are used in different types of industries. And they started evaluating doing APO rollout in different regions. They were using different modules of APO in different regions, but they got the request from their sales representatives, for example, on the demand planning tool. They were used to work on Excels, and then these Excels were consolidated and uploaded on the APO side. They wanted to have a solution that was integrated with the APO solution. And initially they were thinking, okay, let's do a rollout. We would need some additional custom developments on the APO to do that. When they heard about IBP, we did a demo on their premises to show them the functionalities, and they really fell in love with the tool, mainly for 2 or 3 different reasons. First of all, this slice and dice of the data in using an Excel frontend that the users were requesting and that were triggering a lot of custom developments on the APO side, were actually something that was standardly delivered from the IBP solution. Second thing, another thing that they were requesting from the user perspective was also the possibility to work offline. So having the possibility of getting the data from the IBP system, work eventually on the Excel offline, because in some regions, especially in the APAC, the connection was not always good for some of those sales representatives. And then having the possibility, after working offline, just to connect and update the data into the database. And this was again something that was happening again out of the box on the IBP side. How do they implemented the solution and roll out in terms of roadmap? Well, what they did was basically to start with demand planning, first performing a pilot in Europe and then rolling out the solution in different in the other regions. And then after implementing demand planning, they implemented the supply planning piece. Coming instead to the second case, that is Electrolux. They were one of those cases where we were mentioning they were extensive, at least in Europe, they were extensively using APO, and they thought about implementing inventory optimization as an extension of the planning solution. So what we were doing here was exactly the situation that we were mentioning before. The demand planning was still happening on the APO, side, this demand plan was then sent to the IBP side, where we were calculating the recommended safety stock for the finished goods, and then this safety stock was uploaded from IBP to S&P, where the supply network planning was working. The business case of Electrolux was really strong at the end. I mean, in the past, they had improved their target service level only through the over 5% increase in the inventory of 10%, and of course that was bringing to a lot of working capital that was blocked into inventory, and with the implementation of IBP for inventory, what we actually achieved within 6 months was basically to increase further the target service level of 3%, but reducing the inventory levels of 7%. So it was quite a strong case or justification, just simply in few months, of how some implementations can pay for themselves in a really short time.
I think what you can see that is above and beyond the theory that we've given you today. Westernacher has delivered a couple of examples, for instance, that we are showcasing. We've done more, but these are a couple of really strong examples of some of those scenario implementation scenarios, right? One is to be able to consolidate the business into a single S&OP process and be able to improve the planner's experience. And then in the other case, it's about adopting something in SAP IBP that does not exist in APO and be able to drive value, significant value. And nothing speaks stronger than improving your service levels while lowering your inventory levels, right? So again, these are 2 examples delivered by Westernacher, by our team. And I think with the time we have available, we can open up for questions. And this is our contact information. So are there any questions, comments from what we've presented today? I'm reviewing the chat here. I don't see any questions posted. But I have ones for you, Vittorio, since you have a lot of practical experience in this space. So among the 3 approaches, implementation scenarios that you talked about, what is the most common approach that you have seen with APO customers?
In most of the cases, what we have seen is that the classical approach, maybe I will just move to the slide, is the one that we have called improve. So a lot of customers start implementing IBP for demand. So and slowly the commissioning APO-DP with implementation of IBP for demand, and then once they have done with IBP for demand, they are moving or to supply planning in order to cover already the S&OP process, or eventually they can move to inventory, as inventory is also an input. Sorry, the demand plan is already an input for the demand. For the inventory optimization. So that is, I would say, the most common, and what we have seen in most of the cases. The other 2 really depend a bit on the industry and how the company has been eventually developed over time.
What are the typical challenges that you see in APO customers today?
Yeah, at least I have been working in the last 10 years now on IBP side, but there were 2 main challenges that you had on APO or during APO implementations. One was the capability of performing what if scenarios. So for example, in the old APO system, if you wanted to copy data into a different planning version, you often had to wait for all the jobs to run for the day after before being able to run your what-if scenario in this new planning version. And that, of course, delays your how quick you can react to changes, right? In some cases, you really need to be able to react in really short time, and just imagine that you have an issue in that copy, and again, it's 1 day more lost and things like that. The second thing that we were usually fighting when implementing APO in the past was the user acceptance, because users want to be able to have their own view or slice and dice their planning views in different ways, because each one has its way of working in the system. And of course, in APO, the structures of the planning views had to be customized and pre-built in advance. So that was one of the key resistances to change when implementing APO, because the system was not as flexible as, for example, today is IBP, where each user can create its own favorites, for example, and then work on favorites that have been created out of a predefined template in IBP.
I also think that those two are key, because if you have a planner that is capable of running in scenarios, able to identify opportunities to improve the plans via scenarios faster, that also engages the planner with the solution, right? That really helps adoption in a way that is easier to do, easier to run, perhaps understand the outcome as well. There is also, I'm just tagging to what you're saying. The other factor is that it really helps you shorten your planning cycles, right? Because if you have to wait next day to be able to run, you can just start chopping away 2-3 days out of your planning process, planning cycles. So that is also key to the benefits of SAP IBP move. And then the last question I have for you is it possible to take a time to value approach to move from APO to IBP? So for those that are not familiar with the concept of time to value, is Westernacher offers a service called time to value. We provide a framework in which you can adopt technology, in this case SAP IBP, in a matter of months, right? In not years, in a matter of months, you can get to those values quicker because we have a framework of implementation that is really fast. That's what time to value means in a nutshell, at least for me. But is it possible to apply that time to value framework for this type of APO to IBP move?
Yes, we can think of implementing it, but of course it depends a bit from where the company is starting, right? And which is the roadmap that we want to apply. So as we are here in the roadmap definition, you could think of applying a time to value approach, for example, implementing IBP for inventory, for example, where you basically start with a standard implementation of IO, just focusing on in a standardized solution, so that you do not have too many customizations and so on. And of course, the less customizations you have, the faster you can deliver the solution, because it's anyway a cloud solution that can really be implemented in a pretty short time. Another way, still within a different scenario within this slide, could be, for example, instead to start with a standard or a minimum valuable product for IBP for demand, and then start to add in eventually value afterwards, comparing, for example, what you had on APO side and what eventually this minimum valuable product doesn't have, or you could actually need to have it on top or to improve your demand planning process. As said, and I like, for example, your slide related to the value trap, is you should not think about the implementation of IBP like just a replacement or an IT project, right? There is also that process dimension that can help the people to discuss about how is their current process run today, what they can improve it, how can we make use of the latest technology to improve and let's say have a next gen plan instead of having our old planning as we had it implemented 10 or 15 years ago.
Like what you're saying, right? That in a way, this move is not just technology for technology. I think it's also the opportunity to then revisit if your continuous improvement mindset, right, of supply chain management can be used here. It's not just replacing a technology for another. It's about the opportunity to rethink your current processes, the people supporting them, and do I have the right amount, the right people, the right skill sets? Can I improve the processes? And then this technology allowing me to do both, right? And so it's an opportunity to rethink where you are today, because again, it's about unlocking value for your business with that opportunity.
Exactly, and that process and people dimension is often underlooked, right? Sometimes we also see that there are just projects that are only IT driven, but it's actually important that also that the process and the people dimension is considered to have it then really implemented and properly and to have a successful implementation of the solution.
All right, so we have 2 minutes left. I don't see any questions on the chat, but we are basically, let me move to the last slide. So this is Vittorio and me. This is our email, our phone numbers. We really want to thank you for participating today. You can reach out to us if you want to have a deeper conversation and more of a one-on-one conversations with us. And other than that, Vittorio, thank you for partnering with me today, and thank you for your participation. Any last words, Vittorio?
No, again, thank you all. Also, thank you, Alexis. And yes, we are available for any questions or any way we can support you in your journey towards IBP.
All right, with that, we can close the call. So thank you, everyone. We'll talk later.
Thank you all.